Hey everybody, the Game Awards have come and gone. I'm going to give some thoughts on the show and the reveals that we got. Now, the show itself is almost a moot point. It's all kind of a inside joke or understanding at this point that for the most part we watched for the reveals, not so much the awards. But this year I would say for the most part they got it right. Claire Obscure Expedition 33 clearly was Game of the Year. It would have been weird for it not to win. That said, there were some misses there in the awards that, I do feel like, by all accounts, from everything that I've seen online, Fallout clearly was the better adaptation over Last of Us. You know, I mean, that's just me checking the pulse on things. I mean, I don't really have an interest in Last of Us. I mean, it's never been one that's been high on my radar. But by all accounts, I mean, Fallout probably should have won that one. But realistically, like I said, we all watch it mainly for the reveals. And while there were some that had me pretty hyped, overall, I felt like this year's reveals were pretty lackluster. It started out the gate with the Star Wars Fate of the Old Republic, which is obviously the game I am most hyped for, unless the KOTOR remake comes swooping in. But outside of that, you had the Galactic Racer, which also, pretty hyped for because Racer and Racer Revenge are, absolutely fantastic racing games. And so can't wait to see what they do with that. And then the new Mega Man also looks awesome, and the new Divinity game, the new game from Larian, also will likely be excellent. But all in all, um, there was really only the couple of games that really had me kind of hyped. The rest of it, at most had me curious, but the property doesn't have much track record. So like, I'm very curious about the new Dungeons and Dragons game, Warlock. Now, part of that is because the trailer felt very Ravenloft coded, with some of the creatures and just some of the overall look and design aesthetic. But it could also go Neverwinter. But I mean, their track record for proper D&D, action adventure games has been very mixed. Um, they tried the kind of live service route and that failed. I mean, that game isn't even playable anymore. So it's very iffy on that one. But even the Star Wars announcements, as hyped as I am for them, I mean, their track record of getting these games out is very hit and miss right now. Obviously, the Knights of the Old Republic remake is caught up in development hell. Same thing with Eclipse. We don't really get much updates on those. I tapped out on the Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor games. I beat Fallen Order. Survivor, I tapped out on. The parkour stuff just got to be too much to deal with and too overcomplicated, that I just, I tapped out on it. Outlaws was a miss. It was kind of a bomb. So, Star Wars really lately has had, a very bumpy track record game-wise. Now, I mean, you're telling me that the original director behind KOTOR is back, and, that piques my interest a lot with Fate of the Jedi, and, I think that's the one I have the most hope for, but, like I said, you announced that KOTOR remake, and it's been iffy as to whether we'll ever see it. Now, my feelings aside as to, just kind of going off of track record and things like that, I am very excited about Fate of the Old Republic. Now, is this going to be a true sequel? I mean, they said it's more of a spiritual successor to KOTOR. So that leads me to think that while this will be connected, it's not going to be a direct sequel in the traditional sense. because I think what we're going to be getting is something that will harken back to those first two games, but it'll be done more in a way where it's loose enough they can kind of do whatever they want, and this is going to be their way of kind of recanonizing certain fan favorite characters. And I've seen people speculate that the girl in the trailer is Bastilla, but I don't know about that. But I do feel, just given the fact that we see the Leviathan in the trailer, I do think this is going to be their way to just kind of recanonize more fully these characters. I think that, you're going to see a recanonization of Revan, Malak, and Nihilus. I don't know if you're going to really see a full-throated recanonization of Scion or Kreia, or even a lot of the side characters like Karth or Canderous or Mission. At most, you'll probably get a recanonization of Bastila, but that's probably about the extent of it. But, I mean, that's just the nature of where Star Wars canon is at this point, like it's just picking and choosing stuff out of the old EU and just kind of crafting new stories around, how to bring those characters back in, as opposed to just saying, okay, this Legends series is now canon again. This is that, instead of doing that, they want to be able to kind of retool things and tweak things so that it's more in line with what's been going on for the past decade. And, I'm fine with that. But, we'll see if these games even see the light of day. Which brings me to another problem that I had with, a lot of these reveals, is that a lot of them are years off. I mean, yes, there was, quite a bit of 2026, but I mean, even the Mega Man game was 2027. Some of them didn't even have, like, a date, even a year behind it. So it really blunts your hype when you can't look and say, oh, this is coming out, fall of 2026, or this is coming out, spring of 2027. Like, you can't even tamp it down to like a batch of like 2 or 3 months. It's all this nebulous, either 2026, 2027, or no date at all. So it makes it very tough to get hyped for anything, because we're back to questioning, are we even going to see this stuff? I don't know. But I mean, this is getting back to, these prolonged, production cycles on these AAA games is getting out of hand, where it's taking years and years and years and years and years, to do what we used to have on a fairly regular basis. You could kind of count on, if not, every, obviously, not necessarily every year, but, within a couple years of each other, like you look at the run of Oblivion, Fallout 3, Skyrim, Fallout 4, we were getting these with really only a couple year gap between them. And now, you're talking 10-year plus cycles. Same thing with GTA. I mean, my God, you look at GTA 3, Vice City, San Andreas, those all came out within a few years of each other, if even that. I mean, and yet, here we are, GTA 6 is still a year off. Could potentially be, pushed out at any time. Elder Scrolls, no idea. The next proper Fallout game, no idea. So it's very hard to be excited when the games you're most excited for don't even have proper dates. And then again, most of these are just trailers with no gameplay footage. Racer didn't have any gameplay footage. Divinity didn't have any gameplay footage. The D&D game, no gameplay footage. Fate of the Old Republic, no gameplay footage. There are all these cinematics, and then you go back to KOTOR Remake, teaser cinematic. Eclipse, teaser cinematic. And it's been radio silence pretty much ever since. And I think that's a real problem for, the Game Awards is a show that really we watch mostly for the reveals. We're seeing less and less and less with these big games that we used to watch these kind of shows for, coming with gameplay footage, coming with dates, and so you kind of question, is it even worth watching the show outside of just kind of supporting the industry as a whole and letting them know that we actually give a crap about this stuff. But I mean, God, that final reveal being another freaking hero shooter, like, am I supposed to be excited for that? Come on. I don't care what company made it. I don't care. Oh, but it's the guys who used to make Titanfall. Don't care. It's not going to make a dent in anything. It's going to make a dent in Apex Legends? No. Marvel Rivals? No. I mean, hell, even the OG hero shooter is having trouble even keeping up with Rivals. Overwatch 2, like, nobody talks about that. It's been struggling since release. And so you're going to drop another one? That's going to be your big end of show reveal? Come on. I mean, at least they're smart enough not to do like Concord and charge $40 for it. They're, dropping it for free play. So maybe it'll do okay, but I mean, we all know it's not going to make a dent. There's got to be some kind of hook there. And there just isn't. Oh, it's got, it has more of a fantasy look as opposed to, like, it's still a hero shooter, man. Like, that ain't, honestly, they probably should have done that one first and saved the ending reveal for Star Wars. I think that would have probably ended the show with much more hype than just another generic hero shooter that paid a lot of money to, have their reveal be the end spot of the night. So I don't know. Like I said, the awards, landed where they should have for the most part. The reveals, while there was some things to get hyped about, I just don't feel like, overall that it really, had the weight of prior shows. And granted, their reveals have always been kind of hit and miss, but this one, for whatever reason, just really didn't feel like it had the stuff. Like, it just didn't have the amount of games to really be hyped about. Like I said, there's really only 3 or 4 that I was super hyped for, and like I said, outside of the Mega Man one, most of them didn't even have gameplay footage. So we'll see, because like I said, we'll see if any of these games actually even see the light of day. Especially these Star Wars ones. We'll see. But let me know what you think. Did you like the award show? Did you do you feel the same way that I do about the kind of lack of really good reveals throughout the show? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video.